Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life.
This episode is sponsored by Grip. Got lots of people, places, and things to track? Grip is the easiest way for farmers to track anything important to their operation. With flexible QR code tracking, keeping digital records is a snap with Grip's operator-first mobile app centralizing alerts, reminders, electronic forms, and team conversations. With simple month-to-month pricing and no long-term commitments, Grip can transform and streamline your operation so that you can focus on what's most important, growing. For a limited time, get 15% off any monthly or yearly subscription at grip.ag/pricing with the code THRIVEIN25. That's grip.ag/pricing with the code THRIVEIN25. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today, my guests are Jody Prosser and Mady Hastings of Urban Roots Collective, a female-owned regenerative farm in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. What started as two competing farms has grown into a shared mission to provide top-quality produce, flowers, and heritage meats while inspiring their community to reconnect with their roots. Jody and Mady, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a little, that's kind of intriguing that you guys used to have separate farms and then you kind of joined them. Talk a little bit about kind of like how that developed.
Absolutely. So we both coincidentally moved here from the Northeast around the same time, and we actually started farming around the same time. But we had no idea that either of our farms existed. And we actually met kind of in just an unrelated way from the farm, kind of organically online. And we realized that both of us are doing and achieving the same goals. And through meeting each other and being acquaintances, we decided we were going to help each other with each other's businesses. So if she had a wholesale account that she needed a few extra pounds of one thing or another, I would help fulfill that, and the opposite way. Yep. And then it slowly became, hey, we're doing this separately, and this is a lot of effort, and we're both working almost pretty much by ourselves. Why don't we just work together?
Okay. So talk a little bit about each of your background, both from the Northeast. Talk about where in the Northeast and kind of what your journey to becoming farmers was.
So I'm born and raised in Connecticut, and I moved down to South Carolina in 2018. And my husband and I ended up buying this piece of property. We got 52 acres, and we were just like, what do we do with it? I don't know. We'll hold on to it as kind of an investment. Then we just kind of started having some ideas of, let's use it to our advantage. Let's see what comes of it. He wanted to have the adventure side of it with zip lines and a ropes course, and I really wanted the farm. So we actually compromised and we built an adventure farm. And then slowly the farm side started taking over. We have 4 greenhouses now. But when I moved down to South Carolina, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I did not want to get back into the medical field. And so this just kind of slowly took over, and I think best decision I've ever made.
And I'm originally from Philadelphia. I went to school in Vermont for nursing, so it's funny that we both came from the medical field.
Yes.
And when I moved down here, I was working as a registered nurse, and I had 3 kids right in a row. They're all 16 months apart from one another. And so in that time, childcare became too expensive. So in my efforts of staying home with them and being a stay-at-home mom, I am, not the typical stay-at-home mom. I need to stay super, super busy and just be active all the time. And so I said, why don't I just start gardening? And so I had no experience, pretty much taught myself everything that I know from YouTube and from some amazing creators and gardeners from around the world. And that's how I got started, and took my 1-acre property in Lawrence, South Carolina, and completely turned it into a food forest. So it went from 1.1 acres of grass to 1.1 acres of productive garden.
And what Mady didn't mention is she's actually in city limits. So she is truly an urban farm, right in a historical section too of Lawrence. And so that's kind of where the our name comes to play. for urban.
Okay. All right. So talk a little bit about kind of your journey from like seed to soil, or kind of like where did the education come from to teach you how to farm?
Trial and error, a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
Honestly, like Mady said, it's a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of research, a lot of reading, I found a lot of help even just from the seed companies like Johnny Seeds. We use them a lot, and they have a lot of just kind of informational pages that you can go on and read about like whatever it is that you're planting. So I did a lot of that. Started taking courses down here. I actually took a master gardener's course, and that
Okay.
helped a lot with, learning about soil. The soil down here is totally different than the soil in Connecticut. So that was a huge learning curve for me. But the master gardener class helped tremendously. And honestly, it's just been trial and error. It's been learning from other more seasoned farmers around us and what they're doing and what they've tried and failed at. And, just really kind of getting help from the farming community around us.
Absolutely. And I would say one of the biggest creators that helped inspire me to garden was Charles Dowding in the UK.
Yes.
And I absolutely just love him. But I remember watching his YouTube videos for the first time. It was my first introduction to gardening, and his no dig method was really inspiring to me. And I just was so calmed by his voice and his presence in his videos. And I just thought, if this guy can do it and he's making me feel so confident, I know I can do it. So it was really a lot of inspiration from just people watching people on social media. And that's kind of what got me involved with social media, because I just found so much connection and so much help and so much support from that community when I was the only person in my inner circle that was trying to garden, trying to farm, and I had not really delved into this world yet. So that was one of my biggest inspirations early on, and the one person who taught me a whole lot early on.
So you mentioned some of the very specific challenges you have with farming in your area. Talk a little bit about what makes it difficult.
Oof.
So I think right off the bat, the soil, which Jody has already mentioned, we have pretty much completely red clay soil here as our native soil.
Okay.
So amending that soil and making it tenable for crops as well as animals and flowers alike, there's a lot that we have to do in order to make it nutrient dense. I think in addition to that, our seasons are very harsh, and I'll say our summers are extremely hot, and then our winters, they just kind of slingshot into extreme cold. We'll be, at 19 degrees all of a sudden when we were at 70 a week prior. So here it's a lot of up and downs with the temperatures as well as the difficulties with the soil. In my perspective, are two of the hardest things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, we typically have some pretty rainy springs. The good thing about our farm is a lot of our farming is in greenhouses. So,
okay.
But that also, going back to the weather, that creates the whole other issue, because automatically it's, at least 10 degrees hotter in the greenhouses. So we have to adjust when we're starting seeds or when we're putting our seedlings in, because what people might be doing outside, we have to do it, a lot sooner so that we can get the plants or the seeds established based on the warmth and the humidity level.
Okay. Talk a little bit about, the soil and what you've done to try to get it to be productive.
We actually found a great local company here in South Carolina called Humble Acres, and we utilize them. They will deliver dump truck loads to us. So we are using the no-till method. We do everything in raised mounds, even in the greenhouses. So we have, just some landscaping fabric down to make our rows, and then our growing rows are the Humble Acres compost, and everything goes right in there. We have had great success. We see a lot of, besides just great production with our fruits and veggies and flowers, we have a lot of just animal life in there, a lot of bugs and worms and everything. So we know that it's working, and we know that all of our plants are really happy. The few garden spaces that we have outside are also raised mounds with Humble Acres. compost. So we've had great luck with that. And rather than continually tilling our gardens and trying to amend and trying to get the proper pH and the proper nutrient value in our soil, we go right on top, and we just know we use what works with the humble acres.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we don't use any chemicals. We don't use any pesticides, any chemical fertilizers, or anything like that that could further deplete the soil over time. We really try to create as much of a natural ecosystem for, the birds, the pollinators, and all of the critters that are essential for creating that micro ecosystem in the soil that creates just better plants in general. And so that's really important to us, that we don't utilize any of those sprays, chemicals, that kind of thing.
Okay. So what do you pay for compost? Because I was just seeing a post literally, I think today or yesterday, about the different places and what people are paying for compost in the areas.
Yeah, so we typically are getting about a dump truck load, which I think is, I want to say 20 plus cubic yards. And for us, we like to utilize our compost and then order more if we need to. But a dump truck will run us, with delivery costs and everything like that, about $1,000 for a dump truck load.
Yeah.
And for us, that could build out a whole new garden. One dump truck load could amend all of our existing garden beds once they are built out. But for us, we always tell new gardeners and anyone that we're helping to educate that if you're going to spend any money, that it should be on your soil.
Yes, that is your major investment. That's what you're going to want to focus on, and then just kind of build out from there. Yep. But it's literally the ground up. Yep. You definitely want to make that investment.
We always say forego tools. Over getting good compost. You can use your hands, you can use a stick, but you should really invest that money in your soil so that, over time, it just gets better and better.
So that's like $50 a yard. We're paying, I think, $27 a yard delivered. Although it's not as nice as I would like it to be. It's high carbon, so we have to really let it sit for a couple months before it actually starts to break down further. So it steams when you deliver, because it's still composting a bit.
Yeah, but I will say that our compost, we've gotten in a pinch some compost delivered from like another local source. And it was very high carbon. Like you could almost see the wood chips and, the carbon pieces in there. And we have such a difficult time planting directly in that right away. Like you said, we kind of have to let it sit. And if we don't have good production. So we actually lost a couple thousand tulip bulbs this year because we used compost in a pinch that was not, quite the quality that we're used to. But Humble Acres Organics is just an excellent source, and even the owner, Tim, he will actually deliver it himself. So that's a really great thing for us to be able to talk to the owner and give feedback. And I know other farmers who, will report just a review or, say that they're experiencing something, and who will remedy the problem quickly. So we're very lucky to have that source that really breaks down that compost well for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think one of the commenters was saying they're located in Alaska and they're paying $150 a yard.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, on one aspect, you can only compost for probably 6 months out of the year. The other, it's all frozen solid in a block. So but yeah, it's just, that's kind of a bit crazy. And again, I don't know the specifics if I have to haul it a long way or anything like that, but that definitely was interesting. All right, so let's talk through a little bit. Your farm, I think you have a couple different main enterprises. You do, I think, some animals, you do flowers, and then you do vegetables.
Absolutely.
Correct. Yep.
All right, so let's start with the animals. Talk a little bit about kind of what that entails and what are the markets for those.
So we raise chickens for both meat and eggs. So we will process our own chickens about twice a year. We also raise Mason hogs. They're a very rare breed here in the States. They're fairly new to the United States. They came over from China. They were on the critically endangered list. So with all the local, or not the local, but with all of the breeders here in the United States, the numbers are slowly creeping up. The American Meishan Breeders Association is based out of Georgia, and they're doing a lot of research on genetics and everything because they don't know a lot about them. So we raise Meishans. They're great to teach people about them, about their breed. We also do process meat.
We also have puppies, and we kind of give the full farm experience on our farm for tours. We do day camp type experiences,
field trips.
Yep, field trips. So we really kind of have a nice collection of animals on the farm.
Yeah.
Nice. So talk a little bit about the pork breed that you're working with. What's your market for those?
We sell directly off the farm. We will also take it to our local farmers markets, but a lot of our local restaurants are interested in it because it is such a different pork. It's not your typical, other white meat. It is more of a red marbled pork. And you either cook it low and slow and just kind of let that fat melt through it. Or with, a cut like a smaller pork chop, you're going to want to hit it like real hot, real fast, and then just stick it in the oven for a couple minutes. And that's all it needs. It's not something that you want to cook for very long. But we have a good friend who is a chef here in South Carolina, and he took our bacon and he made the weirdest dessert that was so strangely, obsessively good. He did a sweet potato candied bacon brulee, and I could not get enough of it. It was ridiculously good. But we do get into some local restaurants and other local smaller grocery stores in the area as well.
Okay. All right. Very cool. And then talk a little bit about the flowers.
So the flowers are like the love on the farm, I would say. And it's really where both of our passions kind of met. And it's funny, when I started farming in the city and on my own property, I was like, I'm not a flower farmer. That's not my thing. Like, I want to grow food. I want to donate food. And the flowers, learning how important they are to a thriving vegetable garden, I started planting more and more varieties. But the flowers on the farm is one of our most expansive aspects of the farm this year. It's really something that we're kind of taking, by both horns and running with it this year. But the flowers, we grow probably 100 different varieties of flowers. And we supply local restaurants with, bouquets for their dining rooms. We will sell to florists in wholesale bulk orders. We also take our bouquets to markets, and then we also have kind of coined our own build your own bouquet events and bouquet classes at the farm. So we really get people together, teach them how to put flowers together, because it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, which is something that we've learned, and we found that there's a market for helping people gain their confidence with floral arranging. And that's also something that we learned over the last couple of years as well, was, hey, we can grow them, but can we arrange them? That's a whole different story. So it's been really a fun ride with the flowers, and something that we just can't get enough of them.
Yeah, we do events like bridal showers. We also do weddings.
Yes.
We have a big wedding coming up next month that we're really excited for. And yeah, what else do we do? We just do like Easter flowers, Mother's Day bouquets.
Basically anything that we can get flowers into, we will. Yeah. We also dry them so that we can create things with our dried flowers. And we, sell the tubers, we sell plants. We do as much as we can with the flowers, because we're trying to educate people that not only are they beautiful, you can use them at home and enjoy them, but you can also increase your production of your vegetables in your home gardens as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your favorite dried flowers?
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite dried flower is Gumfrina, or Globe Amaranth is another name for it. Yeah. But it is in the clover family, and it creates these beautiful colored blooms. It comes in all different colors, and you can dry it and it stays exactly the same color. Yeah. So it's very, very satisfying to dry the Gumfrina. What about you?
I don't know. I'm anxious to try. So we grow ranunculus in the springtime, and
Mm-hmm.
we have seen other florists that will dry them, and I really want to try that because ranunculus are my absolute favorite flower.
Oh, they're
And I've
gorgeous.
seen pictures of them dried where they basically hold their shape. They, for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, hold their color. So I don't know. I'll have to report back on that one because that might be my favorite dried flower.
Yes. Straw flower is another really good one
Yep.
that dries down.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I think that's probably my favorite dried flower
Yeah.
because it's got that crinkly
Yes.
aspect to it, and yes, the
Yep.
kids love it.
Yes.
All right, so then you have this wedding coming up in a month. Talk about kind of what are the flowers you're going to be using in that.
So we absolutely love this bride. We've actually become, it's funny, we always kind of become friends with our with our brides.
clients, yeah.
And I think that happens because growing on the farm, we really, we have to stay true to seasonal flowers, but as well as like what we're growing. So these brides, we really work closely with them to make sure that our visions are aligned. So this bride actually is a professional strong woman.
Yes.
And she is marrying her soulmate, who is also a professional strongman. So this is a really cool wedding to be a part of.
Okay.
And
Yes.
she really was she sent in her kind of lookbook and her, inspiration to us. And it's very like cliffs of Italy, very organic looking, loose floral arrangements, lots of big blooms,
Lots of color.
So it's going to be really fun for us because we get to really sit in the driver's seat for picking which florals. This is not a bride I want white roses and blue hydrangea. She really wants all the wildflowers. She wants all the cultivated classics that we have. And she really is not afraid of the color, which is great.
Yeah, she wants a lot of that color. And then we have a few extra little surprises that we're going to throw in there. Something that we don't grow, but I think will just highlight her arrangements perfectly. So we'll throw some of those little surprises in there for her.
Yes.
Okay, very cool. All right, so let's move on to the vegetables. Talk a little bit about kind of like what you grow there.
So we do, right now we're in our winter season. So we do all of our salad greens, all of the yummy greens. And I would never say that as a child. I never ate any like spinach or anything. And now I just walk through my greenhouse and just kind of pick them and eat it
I have
raw.
to stop her because otherwise we won't have enough to fulfill our orders.
Right. So right now, like I said, we're in our winter season with the greens. We actually make like a premium salad mix with our rainbow baby greens, Swiss chard, beet greens, kale, spinach. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Sometimes
we'll have a little wild card like a beet green or arugula or something if we have a small batch, but we call it our Ichio greens mix.
Yep. And then going into the summer, we'll do the tried and true classics because around our area, everybody just likes to have their slicer tomatoes for their tomato sandwiches. So we'll do tomatoes, zucchini, squash, eggplant, beans, and
some peppers.
Some peppers. Yeah, we'll do some peppers too.
One thing we have learned with the vegetables selling at markets here is, when I started, I loved doing all the unusual varieties. So different colored peppers.
Correct.
We would do, differently shaped cucumbers. I did some lemon cucumbers or I was really intrigued with growing these different varieties, and they just did not sell well. People were like, how do I cook this? And I'm like, it's a cucumber.
It's a squash.
You do the same thing. And so it actually did cut into some of my revenue early on. And I think Jody experienced a lot of the same things when she was, before we merged. And so this year we really wanted to dial it back. We wanted to focus on specific varieties we know will do well for us, not only growing, but also selling, because we, that's going to be the key to the business is not only having success with growing the plants and keeping them healthy, but also selling the fruit when it comes. So that was a big thing this year was kind of narrowing down those varieties.
Yeah. And a lot of our customers will ask, so we do focus on like heirloom varieties because they'll ask like, oh, which of your tomato plants here are heirloom? And I think the majority of them are. But so that's another thing. we also get asked a lot, are your seedlings, are your plants, are your vegetables, anything like that, are they all organic? So we have that whole conversation with them too. But we've, like Mady said, are just kind of scaling back this year to what is going to hopefully appeal to a lot of our market goers.
So you're going back to, exactly what they're used to.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of traditional buyers then.
Yes.
We do. We also live in an area where a lot of people have their own gardens. And so we've also run into that with markets of, I have all this in my own garden. What do you have that I don't have? But when you actually provide that, then they're not interested in purchasing it. So there is a very fine balance.
Yeah.
And what I found is just having that high quality of what they might have in their garden or helping them supplement what they're already growing. And so we kind of are leaching into that market by selling our naturally grown beyond organic plant starts because there are people in this area that grow their own plants or grow their own gardens for their own food, but may not have the know-how or the abilities to start their own seeds. So we're trying to get into that niche as well to fill in that gap.
Okay. All right. So then when you, with the plants, kind of how do you sell them? Are you selling them like a 3-inch pot, a 4-inch pot, soil blocks?
They're a combination of like 2-inch pots to 4-inch pots. So really just kind of depending. We're pretty early on in the season right now. So everything for the majority, except for like maybe our zucchini and cucumbers, because right off the bat, those like just, sprout out like crazy. Those are all in 4-inch pots, but for the most part, everything's in 2-inch.
Okay. All right. And then talk a little bit about, so are these being sold at a farmer's market or are they being sold on farm?
Right now, they're being sold directly from the farm. We're holding some plant sales. We have also partnered up with our local, it's literally called their neighborhood nursery. It's a nursery down the street from us, and they have a whole section set aside for our locally grown vegetable starts. So people know to go there to get them. There is also another farm across town from us that has a market on site, and we have provided them with our vegetable seedlings as well. But once the market starts, we'll bring them to the market. We have a big event coming up in Greenville on April 26th. So we're going to bring a lot of our plants to that as well.
We have a really fun idea for that event as well, because it's like an Earth Day event. We're really going to try to lean into that. And I think we're going to sell our plants wrapped in newspaper instead of selling them in the plastic pots for that event. And just kind of tying the newspaper around them. And hopefully that will kind of be just a little bit of a resourceful.
Less waste. Less plastic. It'll set us apart as the people who wrap their plants in newspaper and be like, who are they again? But I think that'll be great. Even just from an earth conscious, less plastic, less waste. I think that's going to be a great idea.
And a good proof of concept for anything else that you want to do.
Yeah, very cool. We're going to take a few minutes for a conversation with Tracy, the founder of Grip. Tracy, when you created Grip, you noticed that farmers were having a really hard time with record keeping, right?
Yeah, farms just have so many moving parts, There's a big desire to track information, but very little support for collecting and maintaining accurate records.
The farmers that you've talked with, what are they using for record keeping at the moment?
Well, most are either using paper records or spreadsheets. For day-to-day activities on the farm, it's almost all paper. No one wants to try editing a spreadsheet from their phone while they're out working, For example, we talked to several farmers who had been using paper records for all their fuel usage. Anytime someone used fuel, they would jot down the amount in a little notebook in the office. They had pages and pages of fuel records and would spend hours at the end of every month manually entering that data before anybody could do anything with it. That reconciliation was just adding amounts to calculate monthly usage, apply it to equipment, calculate annual usage. It was costing them a lot of time.
Well, I think paper records are what's most convenient in the moment, but we all know they can be lost, or even the dog can eat them.
For sure, it doesn't get much simpler than scribbling down a number or a quick note, but paper records are hard to keep organized and available to only one person. Once you go back more than a few months, it's hard to find the data you're looking for. And if you try tallying things up like usage records or harvest amounts, there's a lot of numbers to process by hand.
So earlier you mentioned that spreadsheets are the most common alternative, but it's hard to edit spreadsheets from your phone, and you don't want to have to stop what you're doing and go to the office computer just to type in a simple record. Are there any other options for farmers looking for an easy way to track their records?
Well, that's why we created Grip. It's a very intuitive app, so unlike a spreadsheet, it's super easy to open and add information from your phone. With Grip's electronic forms, adding a new entry takes just a few seconds. So at the end of the month, when you're trying to tally fuel usage or harvest amounts, you can calculate it instantly in the app instead of doing all the math on paper.
What about for things like tracking vehicle mileage? I try to closely track the mileage on a truck, and what I'll typically do is snap a picture when I get in and then when I get back out. But at the end of the year, finding all those pictures can be a real pain.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're trying to solve. We actually have a mileage counter built right into the app, so you can scan a QR tag, update your mileage log, and carry on with the work. Another unique use that we found for Grip is managing organic certification records. It can turn into a big problem if you're preparing for an inspection and don't have your documentation in order.
Absolutely. So there's really a lot of different ways you can use Grip on your operation.
Well, yeah, pretty much any kind of tracking and record keeping. We've purposely made it flexible enough to track anything. Another way to use Grip is to track inventory, maybe track how many bags of feed or parts you have on hand. You can just open up the app, check your current amount, and even set up alerts and reminders to tell you when to place a new order with your supplier. There are so many applications, and we're still learning about them all.
Well, thanks for sharing with us, Tracy. For those who want to download Grip and give it a try, what's the best way to get started?
Just go to grip.ag, that's grip with two P's, and check out our monthly plans for a low-risk way to get started with code THRIVEIN25, all one word, for 15% off. That's GRIPP.ag.
All right, and that's Thrive in IN 25, all one word. All right, and so then talk a little bit about, so you've got the on-farm, but you also got some markets. Talk a little bit about like your sales strategy and how that goes together.
So really, our sales strategy off the farm right now and what we've discussed for this coming year is to get people back on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so the goal is to push them.
Yeah. And so we've thought of different ways that we can do that. We love being accessible to people who maybe don't live as close to the farm or it's inconvenient. So we definitely enjoy being at certain markets throughout the year to make sure that those people can access us. But one thing we're implementing this year is our Farm Club members card. And so it's basically like a loyalty card where, you've seen them for a lot of businesses where they get stamped for a certain amount of purchase. And then after 5 stamps, then they will receive a 20%, reward back. So ours are going to be only for farm purchases. So we'll give these out at the farm, but also at markets to try to encourage people to come to the farm. They'll also be for purchases online with farm pickup. So encouraging people that, maybe wouldn't instinctually come to the farm might be intrigued by getting $20 back after 5 purchases. So,
okay.
Yeah, the big goal, I think, when Troy and I first bought the farm, it was to get people off of their phones. How many times do you go out for dinner, you look around and couples or families and everybody's got their head down and everyone's scrolling on their phone and
yes. And even the 6-year-olds have their own tablets.
Yes. I get, I think there's a time and a place. But we also like to just get everybody outside. There's a lot of grandparents that take care of their grandchildren over the summer. So our farm is a place where they can come and bring a picnic lunch. They can hike the trail down to the creek. They can visit with the animals. They can bring a football and throw it around, whatever. We don't charge people to come out and just kind of visit the farm because we want people to get outside. We want people to know this is where your food comes from. Well, good quality, natural food. This is where your whole foods come from. And just kind of get off of your devices.
All right. So then talk to me about, you guys do tours on the farm. How do those work? Are they paid tours, free tours?
They're typically paid tours. A lot of times it'll be like field trips. It'll be groups that will come out, homeschool groups. I just had a field trip today with a pre-K class. This particular group, this school has been coming out to the farm for 3 years. and it's a wonderful teacher. It's a great group of kids. The parents get to come. The animal has a purpose on the farm. So we kind of talk about what the animal's role is on our farm. We talk about how we grow, what we grow. Today I went in and grabbed a handful of spinach right out of the greenhouse, and I said, here, you guys, who likes spinach? And some of the kids were like, no, thank you. But,
yes.
then it's the importance of, look, we don't use any sprays or chemicals. So you can literally walk in our greenhouse, pick the food and eat it. You don't have to worry about washing it or anything. The other thing that we will do is have some of our like independent active adult communities will come out and kind of do a farm tour, and they really like to just kind of poke through our market and also see the flowers. But we'll depending on the group, we might open up one of our greenhouses to like let them go through and cut their own flowers. But for the most part, it's a paid tour.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we used to do free tours, and then we kind of got fed up with that. So we're at the point now where we just charge them $50, and then we actually give them credit back for the store. So we're at that stage right now, but we probably will need to start moving to an actual, okay, guys, once we get more popular, because we are getting a lot more popular. Last year we had, I think, a Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and then some other group or two. So yeah, we're definitely starting to do more of them.
Yeah, and they're really fun to do. I will say, like in the heat of the season, when we're just so busy, that's really when we're like, oh, I wish we, were charging for these.
Yeah.
But if we're doing a quick tour, if we're having an event at the farm already, and we're kind of selling, extraneous stuff, and we do a quick farm tour, we'll always accept donations for those free ones. And most people do tend to donate, or they will purchase from the farm stand, which we call our trading post. So that's also just, I would almost rather that on those free tours than a donation for them to actually get something and enjoy it from their visit.
Okay. Well, talk a little bit about the trading post. Kind of how big is that? How's that set up?
So the trading post is what, about 20 by 20?
16 by 20?
Yeah, 16 by 20. So
Okay.
it's a modest size, but the trading post itself, we really have a vision for it to be a place where people can come and sit. We have a free library with all homesteading, farming,
fun.
animal
Yeah.
care, all the different books that were in our personal libraries are actually in our trading post. We've got two really cute, comfy chairs in there. We've got a big old stuffed chicken for the kids to sit with. So we really want to encourage people to educate themselves, and not always online. We don't always have access to it. We experienced Hurricane Helene this past year. We did not have internet for a number of days. So somebody needed something that we had the book for, they could come and access it. But that's one of the things we have in there. We also sell our produce in the trading post. We sell our flowers, our meat, of course, but we also sell some of our very good friends and local business owners will consign their products in there as well. So we've had soaps and tinctures in there. We've had baked goods. Our very good friend Mason with Boardwalk Bonsai, he sells his bonsai trees in our trading post as well. He also works at the farm. So we really try to make Urban Roots collective. That's kind of the collective part where we're all working together towards a common goal. We support our local friends and fellow business owners, and there's really not anything that we couldn't source locally if someone asked us for it. So that's a really nice achievement, I feel like, that we're both very proud of.
Very cool. Where would you like the farm to be in 2 to 3 years?
So it's going in a really good direction right now. Mady and I have built out a couple new garden spaces. I think I would like to see at least one more greenhouse on the farm. I would like, and that could honestly be for like more of our seedlings. So yeah, like a nursery. I'd like to see, I'd like to hopefully see a bigger trading post so that, we actually have more businesses coming in and saying, hey, can I put my products in here? Can I consign in here? So, I would like to see as crazy as this is going to sound, and my husband's probably going to just crumple to the floor when he hears, I would like to see the flowers almost double in
Yeah.
space.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think I would also like to see almost us not going back to markets.
Yes.
If we could be
Yes.
to the point in a couple of years where our name is known enough in the area and we're kind of a destination farm at that point, where we have the U-Pick going on, we've got events, we've got our classes, that people will authentically be coming out to the farm enough that we can forego going to markets and really rely on our wholesale accounts and our on-farm retail.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So if you moved all your sales to on the farm, what kind of infrastructure changes? Would you have to increase your parking lot, or do you guys have enough parking?
We've got parking enough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So parking
Okay.
would not be an issue.
Parking's
luckily.
not an issue.
If we got more sales on the farm, I think infrastructure wise, we would need to get electric out to our trading post building. Right now, it is just a building. So getting that electric out there, making sure that we can fill that space and use it for our trading post and getting more sales done. I think that's really our biggest infrastructure thing, as well as getting that nursery greenhouse going. Because if we're really relying on one method of sales or one main method, we need to make sure we have enough to support that.
What are your favorite tools on the farm?
I'm holding up my two hands. I use my hands for like everything. Yesterday or the day before, I was totally amending a bed and planting seeds, and I was just using my hands. And Jody was like, "Do we not have any tools in here?" I was like, "I'm good."
We also, when we're in the greenhouses, we're amending beds and kind of making rows to drop seeds in. We'll use just some of our like support stakes. So we use the most random things, pretty much whatever we can just look down and grab.
Yeah. I will say a stirrup is my number one weeding tool. Absolutely love that tool.
The hori knife is very
a hori or just a farm knife. Actually, a good friend of ours who does baked goods in the trading post, her son is 12 years old and he forged me a farm knife. At 12 years old. Very cool.
Wow.
And it is sharp. I've harmed myself with it by accident. But that's, I would say, a farm knife and maybe a good pair of shears. Scissors for cutting flowers.
Okay. All right. Very cool. What would you go back and tell yourself if you could start all over again?
Oh man.
Oh, that's a good one. Don't go all in. So everybody says when you're starting, don't go all big all at once. My husband and I did that, and because we have to make our own mistakes. So we started this huge garden from seed in this red clay that we were trying to amend. And we got seedlings to come up and we were so excited. And then we had 2 weeks of rain and everything washed out. And I said, well, that's it. Sell the farm. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But then somebody told us about the NRCS grant for the hoop houses. So we went down that route. We were able to get 3 put up very quickly. And that changed. That was huge. But I would say start small and know when you have a major rainfall, know where your water is going. That is
yes.
I would definitely I would change the location of our barnyard, and I would not have gone all in all at once. I would have started a little smaller.
I think my biggest piece of advice I would have given myself was to not worry about being perfect. I would, listen to kind of my own gut and like try things, like not be afraid to try more. And I think that would really be it. Is just try it. I mean, I think we can get into our own heads and actually stall a project, or we can stall a goal because we're not quite sure the in between making the goal and achieving it. But most of the time, it's just taking those small steps toward achieving the goal. And a lot of people don't do that. They get stuck somewhere along the way. So not trying to be perfect, just keeping that forward motion and knowing, hey, I'm going to get to try this again next year.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like get a second opinion, get an unobjective opinion on your farm and say, if you were going to do this, this is kind of the layout I have in mind. What do you think? We get that question a lot now that we've kind of been set up for a few years and we've made some changes. But we get that question a lot, and we always say, we're happy to come out and take a look at what your setup is looking like, and just kind of, but just don't be afraid to ask somebody else, ask for a second opinion. Just don't be like, oh my gosh, and don't cower into the fear of, I can't do this, because you probably can.
Yeah.
You probably can.
Yeah.
These two ladies right here who had zero experience,
right,
did not grow up with farming. We're both
No.
first generation farmers. We were able to figure it out in a very short amount of time. And we were building, our own businesses separately, and those were both very successful. And we're hoping that taking the time to build this joint business together will be tenfold more productive.
Well, Jody and Mady, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate you guys sharing your story, and it's exciting to hear where you guys are headed and all the impact you're making.
Thank you so much for having us. It's great to meet you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.